Hey everybody! As you may or may not remember from the end of my last video, this video right here is going to be about the hit indie horror game, Granny. I mean, I said that's what this next video is going to be about, and why would I ever lie to my audience? So, let's not waste any time and get right into the in-depth Granny discussion. You just gotta subscribe first before we talk about it. You know, company policy. Alright, now that we have that out of the way, we can get right into not talking about Granny. Whoops. Okay, so maybe I should explain why this video exists. I'm sure seeing this in your sub box and or recommendations was a bit of a shock, considering it has been a very long time since I've made a video on Five Nights at Freddy's. Anything for that matter. Over the past year, I've tried my best to move away from only making FNAF content. I felt like it trapped me in a bit of a creative bubble I was worried I would never be able to escape from. Thankfully, my pivot away from FNAF over the last year ended up working out quite well, and you all seem to enjoy the content I've been making over the last year, which I am very thankful for. However, it only recently clicked with me that the anniversary of my final real FNAF video was creeping up, which just so happens to be my infamous Dormitibus video. Sure, there are like 3 videos after that one that are FNAF adjacent, kind of, but when it comes to strictly FNAF videos, Dormitibus was my final one. To think it's been a whole ass year since that video came out is very strange, but it also just made me feel a bit nostalgic for the FNAF era of my content. So after a long time, I am officially coming out of FNAF retirement, at least this one time, to celebrate the anniversary of my last FNAF video. Will I make more FNAF videos after this? Probably? I'm not really sure, but if this is the last one for a while again, I hope you all enjoy it. Now, with that out of the way, we can get right into the topic of today's video. Five Nights at Freddy's Evolution. FNAF Evolution was published to Game Jolt on March 11, 2017 by Nathan Zika, and it is one of the most broken video games I have ever played in my entire life. I have never been brought to tears more by a game in my entire life for all the wrong reasons. I should probably explain how we even got here in the first place. It all started one fateful night at 4 AM. You know, when all good decisions are made. Anyway, I'm hanging out in a Discord voice chat with a couple people, most notably, fellow not FNAF YouTuber, The Baddest. We were having a conversation about the big 3 of FNAF fan games, which naturally turned into a conversation about the big 3 of the worst FNAF fan games. Your typical answers were given, like the Return to Freddy's and Dormitibus, but a game called FNAF Evolution was also brought up in that discussion. After taking a look at the Game Jolt page, I was very confused. Sure, it looked mediocre, but it was also an almost decade-old game made by someone who was probably a kid when it was released. I didn't really get why it specifically was being brought up. Maybe it was just the popularity behind it? The page did have over 3,000 followers for some reason after all. I say all this, however, the biggest red flag of all time I could have possibly been given was staring directly at me on the Game Jolt page. Said red flag was an old-ass comment by none other than Fusion Z Gamer, which read, "Night 2 is next to impossible to beat, because Chica keeps attacking over and over again once it gets to 3 AM. Now, I did see this comment when I first downloaded the game, but multiple updates were pushed out for FNAF Evolution after this comment was made. So surely the game isn't that broken in the year 2024, right? Right? 15 different glitches were encountered during my playthrough of FNAF Evolution. Nope, I am not kidding. Now the title for this video is a little bit of a lie. The game didn't actually crash 5 times. It only crashed 3 times. Sorry for that, but you don't have to worry, because we have a whole other laundry list of glitches to cover here. In fact, I have created a night-by-night breakdown of FNAF Evolution, going over every single glitch I ran into and what night they happened on. Because of this video is going to be a little different from my other FNAF videos I've made in the past. Whereas before I typically just talked about all the mechanics of the game generally and never really bothered to break things down on a night-by-night basis, this time, the actual gameplay is so nothing that I'm going to have to go night by night, specifically just to talk about the glitches and stuff. Trust me, very little of this video will be spent talking about the actual game, because as you'll soon find out, there really isn't much to talk about in that regard. So with all that out of the way, why don't we get to it, folks? If I had to suffer through this, now it's your turn. Strap in, everyone, as I take you through the most broken FNAF fan game I have ever played, Five Nights at Freddy's Evolution. Night 1. Alrighty, first thing I want to talk about here technically isn't even a glitch. Like, I am not counting this towards the total glitches I encountered. However, it's interesting and funny enough that I gotta bring it up. Now, FNAF Evolution is an old game, so I'm not super shocked that this is a problem with it now in the modern day, but this game is a pain in the ass to record and screen share, especially on a 2-monitor setup. If you try and tab out of the game for whatever reason, your entire computer will have a fucking quick little breakdown before letting you out of the game. Because of this, selecting the game to record on OBS or screen share on Discord is very hard. I ended up just recording my entire screen and that obviously worked, but this then transitions into a different issue. Similar to some of the older FNAF games, FNAF Evolution was created with the intention of it being played in a 4:3 aspect ratio. For some reason, which I still don't really get, the game forces itself to have a full screen aspect ratio when opening it on modern hardware, leading to the picture being really shitty and stretched looking. Even though that was the case, for some reason the game still recorded as if it was being played in 4:3. So the gameplay footage you'll be seeing in this video should be all good, but just keep in mind when I was playing the game, it did not look like this. Also, for anyone wondering, I could not find a way to window this game. That would have also been a very big help. Okay, now we can talk about the actual game, starting with this fantastic title screen. It's pretty much just a recreation of that one Freddy image, but with this game's version of Freddy, who's called Funtalized Freddy for some reason. I still have no clue what this even means after beating the entire game, so don't ask me, I don't know. I would now like to bring to your attention the fact that this version of the game I played is 1.9, so there were definitely a few updates before this final definitive version. Keep that in mind as we go through these 15 glitches and bugs that I found. Speaking of, the first one can be found right here on the title screen. Notice how it says Night 1 instead of Night 1? I am counting this as a glitch because I refuse to believe this is somehow a spelling mistake when the word night is literally spelt correctly on the same title screen. This is probably the most debatable in terms of if it's actually a bug or something, but don't worry, the rest are pretty cut and dry. I just thought that little oversight was funny enough to include. Enough yapping about this beautiful title screen though. Let's get into the actual game. Right off the bat, we need to talk about the office in this game, because holy shit does it scream 2017 FNAF fan game. If that's a good or bad thing, I'll let you all at home decide. Of course, we have the iconic Celebrate poster in the office. Gotta have one of those. Alongside one, count 'em, one singular children's drawing. I can feel the FNAF running through my veins, dude. The other posters though, that's where the real shit is. We have a poster of Hatsune Miku. Sure, why not? We have a poster of some guy playing Minecraft, and finally, we have a poster of a green withered Freddy holding guns, burning in hell. Raw as fuck, dude. I have so many goosebumps right now. Here's a fun question. Assuming this game takes place in the 80s or 90s, like pretty much every single game like this does, do you think the owner of this building is a fucking time traveler or something? I like to think they were so proud of that fact that they just needed to put posters of random shit people in the 80s would have zero clue about. I also like the fact that out of the few things he decided to share with the world early, he chose Miku, Minecraft, and a FNAF OC. Truly a visionary. Anyway, as you could probably tell by my uncertainty on when this game takes place, there is very little exposition given anywhere in this game. There's no phone guy, no paycheck at the end of night 5, just the occasional TTS voice to explain something, mixed with the occasional broken English Arial font on screen to also explain something. Leaves things up to the imagination more than usual, which I think is very fitting for a game this funny, intentional or not. Anyway, I guess I should take this opportunity to talk about the actual game for a little bit, since I guess I still have to do that. Thanks a lot, Justin Trudeau. The gameplay of FNAF Evolution is literally just FNAF 2, but with less mechanics to worry about. The office is set up in the exact same way, minus the vents being gone, there's a mask to deal with the threats in the office, and of course, there's a music box that makes the cameras entirely useless for the whole game. I'm so glad this game adopted all the best parts of FNAF 2. Am I right? So if you've played FNAF 2 before, you've effectively played FNAF Evolution. A better version of FNAF Evolution, but FNAF Evolution nonetheless. Wow guys, what an evolution of the FNAF genre! Taking one of the weakest games from a gameplay standpoint and making it weaker! I'm only being half serious about this, by the way. Most fan games around this time period were essentially just spins on existing FNAF games. This isn't a unique case or something. Hell, even Flumpty's 1 is essentially just FNAF 1 with like one new mechanic. FNAF Evolution just does this sort of gameplay exceptionally bad compared to a lot of its competition. There are maybe like 2 different spins on the gameplay that come up later in the game, but neither are very substantial. We'll talk about them as they naturally come up in the video, but for now, just keep in your mind the gameplay of FNAF Evolution is just FNAF 2, but easier. No vents, no balloon boy, just a mask, a hallway, and a music box. The big three, as we call them in the industry. Visually, this game is pretty much just on par with a lot of the other fan games coming out around the same time, so there isn't really much to say about it. I think this style of graphics is almost a little nostalgic now though. Like, it doesn't look good or anything, but in a weird way, I think this game, and many similar to it, have aged kind of well. Only if you grew up with these early FNAF fan games though. Show a 7-year-old child this who has zero knowledge about FNAF fan games and they'll probably throw up on the spot and proceed to run back to their bedroom to play Lethal Company and Fortnite for 8 hours a day. Kind of a based kid, I can't lie. I guess the one thing I can comment on visuals-wise is the designs of the animatronics, so I'll comment on them as they appear in the game. Night 1 only has Bonnie and the puppet, who both have very odd designs in this game. Bonnie less so, but the puppet is very fucking weird. It almost has an Ennard-esque body, and even opens up their face like a Funtime animatronic as part of their jump scare. It's not a very good design though, and it doesn't help that you pretty much have to spend the entire game looking directly at them thanks to the music box mechanic. I didn't even know the puppet was on Night 1 until I died to it, by the way. For some reason, the bar on the camera just doesn't start depleting until later into the night. This would obviously make sense if there was a phone call or something that lined up with the music box mechanic activating, like in FNAF 2, but as I stated previously, FNAF Evolution has nothing like that. I almost counted this as a glitch because it happens again later on Night 7 for some fucking reason, but I think it's more likely just a poor game design oversight. I've been calling the puppet mechanic a music box this whole time, just because it functions the same way, but it's actually sealing a vent door or something rather than winding a music box. This is accompanied by an animation that plays every time you hold the close button, aka wind the music box. And said animation is what you'll be watching for the majority of FNAF Evolution's runtime. Also, this just needs to be said, this animation looks like the puppet's going to town on 2 drakes. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just what it looks like. Overall, the puppet in this game is very weird looking and also maybe should be locked up for being a freak. Bonnie, on the other hand, is very much not as weird as the puppet. I think this design is probably the strongest in FNAF Evolution, which isn't saying much, but you gotta take what you can get. His render for when he's in the office is pretty good, and he looks very funny in the hallway. He probably also has the most thumbnailable jump scare in the entire game, and he definitely would have been the thumbnail of this video if the sequel didn't exist. Oops, spoiler! So yeah, that's pretty much all the rambling I have to do with the actual game itself. It's time to get into the real shit here. The glitches. Glitch number 2, Bonnie duplication. Yo, get it, girl.
If you ever want to make another game.
What the fuck? Why are you in both places? What the fucking...
What?
This game is really high quality, let's just say that. This was a very minor glitch, which, to my knowledge, never occurred again in my playthrough. However, it's a glitch nonetheless, so let's talk about it. In the middle of one of my Night 1 attempts, Bonnie appeared on both the main stage camera and another camera at the exact same time. It didn't affect my gameplay or anything, but I kinda suspect this probably happened way more, and I just didn't know it. Since the optimal way to play FNAF Evolution is to use one camera the entire time, I never really got a good chance to see if the animatronics were showing up in 2 places at once, on the cams past Night 1. Harmless glitch, but a pretty funny one regardless. Glitch number 3, static attack. Slop, these nights are too fucking long, I'm losing one. What the fuck is happening? Hold on.
I don't know. I think the camera just bugs out whenever there is a movement.
That's very annoying. That's
Yeah,
100% what that is. In FNAF games, both fan and official, when something happens on the cameras that involves something moving either to or from the camera's view, the transition for this is typically hidden by a quick burst of static to make things feel more natural. This game, of course, does this as well, however not in a very good way. Instead of just limiting the static to the camera where the shit is actually moving, FNAF Evolution decided to have the static appear regardless of what camera you're on every single time an animatronic moves. So even though you're gonna be on the puppet cam the whole ass game, you're still gonna see these quick bursts of static, just because, I guess? This isn't even the worst part though. The worst part is that the static also appears when you're in the office, which obviously makes 0 sense. I'm assuming this was just because the dev didn't know how to limit the static when they made the game, which is fair I guess, but it still results in a very annoying little detail you have to deal with for the entire game. That's all for Night 1 glitches. But don't worry, we have plenty more to go over. We are just scratching the surface of the broken shit this game has to offer. Let's keep going. Night 2. Each main night in FNAF Evolution ends with a sister location / fun with plush trap style minigame that rewards the player with a 2-hour head start on the next night. I'm not going to talk about these yet since I actually ended up skipping most of these for reasons we'll get into later, but once we're done talking about the 5 main nights, I'll be sure to very quickly go over all the minigames. They aren't very interesting and don't have any bugs really, but just know I didn't forget they exist. I almost forgot they existed, but I didn't, so it's okay. Anyway, all you have to remember for now is that completing these starts your next night off at 2 AM, which is what I did for night 2. Keep that in mind for later. For the most part, night 2 is most of the same. Well, the entire game is more of the same, but I digress. This night introduces Chica into the mix, and she looks, well, she looks like if you took a FNAF World model and stretched it to be the same height as a normal FNAF animatronic. I think she looks the most out of place by far compared to everything else in the game. Mechanics-wise, she's identical to Bonnie, so nothing to talk about there. There really isn't anything to talk about for this night. Besides the glitches. If night 1 really only had some mild or questionable glitches, night 2 is where the real shit starts to pick up. Let's not waste any time and talk about glitch number 4, the hallway. The hallway in FNAF 2 isn't perfect by any means. Only certain combinations of animatronics can stack in the hallway at the same time, at least on the visual side of things, and all of those times where the flashlight just stops working for seemingly no reason are very annoying. Even with that said though, the mechanic gets the job done for the most part, and does a pretty decent job giving the player a heads up on the threats that are actively approaching. The hallway in FNAF Evolution might as well not fucking exist. No, this isn't a game design issue, this is solely an issue with how the game was made. To understand the full picture here, let's talk about the hallway on night 1. Since the only animatronic that could even enter the office that night was Bonnie, the hallway was an effective tool to know when he was about to enter the office. If this was handled properly with the addition of more animatronics, this system would be fine. However, that is obviously not the case. No. Instead of the hallway continuing to be a useful, reliable source for survival, it becomes a tunnel of lies and deception. Do not trust that evolved hallway past night 1. There are multiple different issues with this stupid ass hallway, but let's talk about the one that's relevant to night 2. Let's say, for instance, Chica enters the hallway. You now know that Chica is about to enter the office, and she eventually does do that. You think you're good after she leaves, but upon flashing your light into the hallway, you see that she's still there. Except she isn't actually there. This is an insane visual bug that keeps the sprite asset of the hallway characters there longer than they really should be. And in this case, the Chica in the hallway stayed pretty much the entire night. The only way to figure out if something is actually in the hallway from this point forward is to listen for the sound cue that plays when an animatronic is in the hallway. And even that aspect of the mechanic has multiple bugs we'll see later. So overall, the hallway is just completely fucked. Speaking of that hallway, we aren't done just yet, because glitch number 5 is Invisible Bonnie. You heard that right. First we had Bonnie duplicating himself, and now we just have straight up Invisible Bonnie. This is better than Flunky's 3.
Absolutely. Like,
He's finally gone.
Like, this is good.
What the fuck?
What?
Huh? What did they mean by this? Why did I die?
What did they mean by this?
What did they mean by this?
What the hell did they...
What literally night 2? I don't know what series of events actually triggered this, but at one point during my night 2 attempts, Bonnie was able to jump scare me without A, ever being in the hallway, and B, ever entering my office so I could put my mask on. And no, this isn't just a case of me missing something or being shit at the game. You can see the footage. You can see what happened. Bro was actually nowhere. Directly after losing to Bonnie, I discovered glitch number 6, permanent time bonus. Okay, so I don't actually know if this is a glitch or not, but I've decided to count it because I'm really not sure, and I'm leaning towards it being a glitch. Remember when I said you could get a 2-hour time head start for completing the post-night minigame? Well, for some reason, that time bonus is a permanent thing for the entire night, even if you lose on the attempt where you got the extra time. So even if I died on night 2 1 million times in a row, I would still start at 2 AM every single attempt. I call this weird or a glitch because in FNAF 4, the game where this mechanic is taken from, if you lose the attempt you have with a time bonus, that bonus is gone for the rest of the night. You only get to skip a few hours, 1 attempt per night. I'm assuming the dev was going for the same thing here, but obviously it doesn't work like that. Maybe this is a glitch, maybe it isn't. All I know is that 15 glitches sounds better than 14 glitches, so we're moving on. Glitch number 7, the Night 2 Special. This glitch is really just a combination of all the things I've already talked about during this section. They just so happen to occur back to back, and it made for a new, interesting glitch. I don't even really know how to describe this one with words, so I'm just gonna play the footage and let it speak for itself. Oh my god, bunny. Wait, that's what happened, holy shit.
Wait, that's so fucked. Wait, what?
Where did he go? Oh my god.
What? Bro,
That is so fucked. Huh? Bro is just back. Oh my god. They're like stacking. What the fuck?
I'm so curious what night 3 is gonna be like.
Oh my god. Yeah, I don't even know, man. I'm done with night 2. Let's move over to night 3, where arguably the worst glitch in the entire game happened. Arguably. There's a lot of competition, okay? Night 3. Night 3 lacks in quantity in terms of glitches, but in terms of quality, oh, oh boy, you're in for a real treat tonight. Before we get into that though, let's first go over the additions to this night of FNAF Evolution. Starting off with the newest addition to the animatronics roster, we have Freddy Fazbear, finally. Can you take a wild guess what his mechanic is? If you said the exact same thing as Bonnie and Chica, you'd be right. We are 3 nights into this game, and every single animatronic added does the exact same thing. What even is this game, man? Even FNAF 2 knew to add some curveball characters like Foxy and Balloon Boy fairly early into the game to keep things interesting. Ain't no way we have to wait until night 4 of 5 for a new mechanic. Well, Freddy does have something special about him that none of the other characters in this game have had so far. It's not anything gameplay related, but it still definitely impacts the game in ways that may or may not give me a headache. Let's talk about voice acting for a second, shall we? Voice acting in FNAF stuff, specifically old school FNAF stuff, is very hit or miss. Sometimes the environment or context can warrant it, but 9 times out of 10, it feels a little bit out of place. So take FNAF Evolution, a game that has 0 voice acting up until this point other than a stock TTS voice for stuff that happens outside of the Office gameplay. Wouldn't it be weird if on night 3 of the game, one of the characters added randomly had full voice acting when literally nothing has happened so far that would A, warrant that, or B, be enhanced by its inclusion? That'd be crazy if FNAF Evolution did that. That'd be crazy! Oh, enough with it already. FNAF Evolution did that. Yes, the character added on night 3, being the Freddy Fazbear himself, has full voice acting for some reason, and he's the only character in the entire game to have this. I'm sure whoever did the performance really tried their best, but these are some of the most annoying voice lines in a game like this I have ever had to put up with. What? Who? Why are there voice lines?
Like Scott Ambient.
Like Scott Ambient. Oh my god. It's just the same shitty Funtime Freddy impression over and over again for the remainder of the nights. The voice lines aren't even like in-universe quotes that the animatronics would say on stage. No, these are full-on self-aware corny voice lines. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about this night from a gameplay point of view. Same old, same old. Now, on to the glitches. Glitch number 8, Return of the Hallway. Remember the hallway? Remember all the fun we had in the hallway earlier? Well, guess what? We get to talk about it again. I have no idea how this wasn't happening on previous nights, but here's the glitch. Okay. So how the animatronics in the hallways work is that when one is actively in the hallway, an audio cue will play, letting you know that something is in there. In FNAF 2, this sound is also present, but is just tied to the office in general, not each of the animatronics. That way, the sound doesn't keep resetting or stacking on top of itself every time more than one animatronic is in the hallway. FNAF Evolution does not do this for some reason, and instead has this sound effect tied to each of the animatronics individually. So if 2 animatronics are in the hallway at the same time, the ambience will stack on top of itself and play the sound cue 2 times at the same time. If you couldn't guess, this is insanely annoying.
I really hope it's not bugged so that it doesn't end.
Bro.
But I feel like that's becoming increasingly more likely.
The ambience, the Scott ambience. Maybe the dev couldn't figure out how to have the sound effect tied to the hallway itself rather than each animatronic entering it, but regardless, I have no idea how this was never fixed, patched, or at least removed or edited. Going forward, this happens a lot. I guess the weight of 3 animatronics being active at once was just enough to set it off. While that glitch was kind of annoying, this next glitch is truly something else. I'm talking about glitch number 9, frozen time. Right, so funny story. When I was playing Night 3 in FNAF Evolution, the in-game clock was stuck at 12 a.m. That's fucking right. I could go for as long as I wanted to go, but the clock was stuck at 12 a.m. I have no idea if the time was actually moving here and this was just a visual thing, or if the game was actually frozen in time, but regardless, this is a pretty insane glitch to just have in the middle of the game. This was not just a one-time thing either. I made sure to reset the game and restart the night, but every time the clock was set in stone at 12 a.m. Listen, there's still some pretty wild glitches in the 6 remaining ones, but this one might take the cake for the most bizarre. I ended up skipping the night to night 4 using the game's text file, and continued on from there. So with that being said, let's take a look at night 4. Alrighty, this is the night to finally add a character that is dealt with in a way that is not the mask, and after 3 nights of the exact same gameplay, I needed this. Or at least, I thought I needed it. What I actually needed to do was close the game and go to sleep, since it was like 5 a.m. But who cares about that when you have FNAF Evolution to play? The newest addition to the roster is Foxy, as you may or may not have been able to guess. And here's how he works. Foxy will enter the office a few times every night. This entrance is split up into multiple phases. Phase 1 is when he enters the office, but doesn't show himself. Phase 2 is when he does a slight jump scare on the side of the screen to let you know he's close to attacking. And Phase 3 is when he finally attacks and stands right in front of you. Instead of using your mask to get him to leave, you just have to flash your light on him. So it's the exact same mechanic as every other character, but you press one button instead of another one, and there's an overly long build-up attached to the start of the character entering the room, instead of them standing in the hallway. Cool. This mechanic is very easy to figure out, but the game still tries to teach you how to deal with him via a piece of text in the bottom left corner of the screen at the start of night 4. The English might be, a little broken, but you know, it's the heart that counts. Anyway, now that we've all finished sitting around the campfire learning how Foxy works, let's see how broken he is. Glitch number 10. Foxy stacking and the return of Invisible Bonnie. This glitch is really just a series of events that happened back to back that I thought were absurd enough to bring up. So on one of my night 4 attempts, I got a very specific combo of characters that came after me, which led to the return of everybody's favorite Invisible Bonnie glitch.
What the fuck? Okay, I think that's just meant to... Maybe that's a warning that he's gonna appear?
That is a very big... Okay. Was that fair remotely?
Well, it worked.
Why did they both spawn on top of each
Take
other?
what you can get.
Where the fuck was
What?
Bonnie? Literally,
Bro.
where the fuck was Bonnie? Here's what happened. Freddy entered the office, which is fine. I just threw on my mask like I always do. However, in the middle of Freddy still being in the office, Foxy spawned on top of Freddy. Now, if Foxy was dealt with by using the mask, this wouldn't cause any issues. However, as we just talked about, you need to use the flashlight to deal with Foxy. So in the middle of me dealing with Freddy, I had to quickly take the mask off, flash Foxy, then return back inside the mask and pray to God neither of them kill me. Surprisingly, this actually worked, and I survived the double attack. That wasn't until Bonnie jump scared me out of nowhere with zero indication given beforehand. Safe to say that one left me a little confused, because even looking back at the footage, I have no idea what happened here. Glitch number 11, Invisible Foxy. You've heard of Invisible Bonnie, now get ready for the mediocre straight-to-DVD sequel, Invisible Foxy. Pretty much the exact same thing as Invisible Bonnie. I was just jump scared by Foxy without even having him spawn in the office for me to flash him. He still entered the office and did his little warning animation, but never appeared for that final stage, so I ended up dying to nothing. This glitch happened again on night 5 as well, but obviously I'm not going to count the same glitch twice. Just thought I'd mention that. That's it for the glitches on night 4, but there's one last thing I gotta talk about before we move on. I did have to skip this night because of glitch number 10. You know, the one where Freddy and Foxy stacked on top of each other in the office? I was able to deal with it that one time with Bonnie that I already explained, but every other night 4 run ended because of this evil setup. You're probably wondering why the exact same Freddy and Foxy setup was happening every single attempt, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Keep it in the back of your mind, it'll be important, I promise. Anyway, I skipped the night, however, I'm not counting this specific thing as a glitch because I already kinda did, and I do know that there's a pretty easy way to get out of this scenario with zero issues. It has to do with the mechanics of the flashlight, but we'll save that discussion for night 5. Speaking of, night 5. We have finally made it to the last night of the game. Well, that's actually a lie. There is a night 6 and 7, but unironically both of those are easier than this night by a mile. In fact, Let me quickly explain those nights right now to get them out of the way, because they are that unimportant. Night 6 removes every single animatronic from the game and is a one-on-one boss fight with Spring Bonnie. Spring Bonnie acts the exact same way as Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica, except he has a shorter time to react to him. So essentially it's the same shit, but without the Foxy mechanic that actually switched things up a little bit. Cool. Night 7 removes every single animatronic from the game again, including Spring Bonnie, and is a one-on-one boss fight with a green version of Freddy. Green Freddy acts the exact same way as Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica, except he has a shorter time to react to him. So essentially it's the same shit, but without the Foxy mechanic that actually switched things up a little bit. Cool! I ran into no glitches on either of these nights, and both of them are very easy, so we'll stop talking about them now. I'm sure I'm disappointing someone out there who's really into Green Freddy, but I'm sorry, we gotta move on, man. Just put a green filter over the video and pretend Freddy's the only thing that's green, okay? Anyway, let's actually talk about this night. Night 5 introduces 2 new animatronics, one of which is very fucking weird, but let's talk about the significantly less weird one first. Fredbear is literally the exact same as every other character in this game. Maybe he has a shorter period of time to react to him before he jump scares, but it isn't big enough for me to actually notice. Also, I think he was given voice lines as well, but they are just the exact same voice lines that normal Freddy has. I only say this because sometimes he would say the same line that Freddy does when he enters the office, but they may have just been stacking a lot. I have no fucking idea. Who cares? Let me move on. The weird character added this night is Lolbit of all animatronics. Their entire gimmick is that randomly during the night, they will appear on the screen and block your vision. All you have to do is fidget with the flashlight a bit and they fade away. I was very confused how this mechanic worked at first. I legit just thought it was an Easter egg. It comes out of absolute nowhere and feels so insanely out of place, but I kinda love it for that. It's even more weird for me specifically, considering I had to skip the post-night minigame that actually does feature a version of Funtime Foxy or Fixed Mangle, so I was very taken aback that there was a Lolbit mechanic, but not a Funtime Foxy mechanic. Anyway, that's it for the additions to this night. Let's take a look and see how broken it is. Glitch number 12, the secret of the light is my demise. At this point in my playthrough, I was pretty fed up with, playing this fucking game. I wanted to figure out the most effective strategy for playing FNAF Evolution to try to get through the remainder of the game as quickly as possible. This ended up leading me to mess with the mechanics of the in-game flashlight, which very quickly made me realize that if you hold down the flashlight button and never release the button press, the flashlight never shuts off, even when you pull up the camera. And since there's no battery for the flashlight in this game, you have no reason to never not be pressing the flashlight button. It makes dealing with Foxy a fucking joke, and it lets you see down the hallway at all times. Seems like a winning strategy, right? Well, it kind of was, but it was also the accidental key for a whole new slate of glitches I would have never found otherwise. The first of these glitches involves the in-game audio, which will completely fucking die if you hold the flashlight for too long. I guess because using the flashlight makes a buzzing sound of its own, having it held down for too long starts to fuck with all the other in-game audio. Everything from the hallway ambience to the Foxy warning jump scare to the noise that plays when an animatronic enters the office was either completely bugged or didn't play at all because of this glitch. Now this is just the tip of the iceberg for flashlight related glitches, because glitch number 13 is the flashlight crash. Oh my god. The game crashed! Oh my god! Pretty self-explanatory. Because the game was bugging out super hard due to me holding on the flashlight for the entire night, it just straight up crashed. Multiple times. This especially stung when I got to 5 AM and the game only then decided to crash right at the end of my run. Very cool. Glitch number 14 is Fredbear eating the camera. I don't even think that's a very good name for this glitch, but I couldn't come up with anything better at this point. Give me a break, okay? I'm 15 pages deep into a script about FNAF Evolution. That should say enough, alright? Excuse me? What just happened? This glitch is pretty simple. I just pulled my mask up on Fredbear a little too early, and he killed me. But because I had the camera pulled up, his jump scare just never played for some reason, so the jump scare sound went off, but the camera was never pulled down, and I died looking at the puppet in his freaky little chamber. I also encountered the death minigame after this loss, which made the clip way funnier than it probably would have been otherwise. Finally, we have glitch number 15, flashing sprites. God, this. I'm I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. I have zero idea what triggered this one, but during a random attempt of Night 5, all the in-game animatronic renders started flashing and glitching out on screen. This ended with the entire game crashing, again, which I feel is a great way to cap off these glitches. I couldn't come up with a better ending myself. Well, we're pretty much done here. However, there's one final thing that I need to talk about before we stop talking about FNAF Evolution for good. Well, at least this specific game. Don't worry, I didn't forget the sequel. Throughout my time playing this game, I started to notice patterns while playing the same nights multiple times. This started getting more obvious to me during Night 5, since I had to play that night a bunch of times because of the crashing. What pattern was I picking up on, you're probably wondering? Well, I started to notice that the order in which the animatronics entered the office was very similar each attempt I did of the same night. Almost too similar. Almost like it was the same order every single time. I needed to figure it out for myself, so I took 2 different runs of Night 5 and watched them back to back, making sure to take notes of what animatronics entered the office at what times. I did this for 2 runs that started at 12 AM and ended at 3 AM, and what I found is exactly what you probably already assumed by this point. The data was the exact same. With this knowledge and the mysterious absence of a custom night, it just leads me to believe that this entire game is scripted. Every single animatronic move is scripted. It's my worst nightmare. I'm having sister location PTSD. Speaking of sister location, I did promise to talk about those post-night minigames, so I guess I'll do that real quick. Pretty much all of them are just shittier versions of already shitty sister location segments, and I really don't think I was missing out on not playing them during my actual playthrough. I wish I had more to say, but I've already yapped about this game for far too long, so let's wrap things up. FNAF Evolution found a moderate amount of success, which led to the development of a sequel game titled FNAF Evolution 2. To this very day, the game still isn't out. From what I can tell, the demo is like 5 years old, and the last update on it was like 2 years ago. So I have no idea if this shit is actually cancelled or not. Regardless, I played the demo for this video, and it's very much fine. The character designs are more interesting, the location is more interesting, the gameplay is way more unique, but there just really isn't a whole lot to do in this demo. I kinda hope this game gets finished though. FNAF Evolution of all games having a redemption arc would kind of be legendary. And I do see potential in this concept, absolutely. Anyway, at least FNAF Evolution 2 gave me a fire-ass thumbnail for this video, because that first game was not cutting it in the thumbnail department. Overall though, I think FNAF Evolution is a very funny game, and this video is in no way that serious. Obviously the dev has moved on to greater things, but I hope that both they and everyone else watching this enjoyed this little blast from the past. Who knows what my next FNAF video will be, but I would be lying if I said I didn't have a fun time making this one. Kinda missed it. We'll see, I guess, but tune in next time for the Granny video, finally. What specific Granny thing will I be talking about? You'll just have to wait and see, but I can guarantee you it will be very funny. Anyway, that's enough out of me today. I've been yeah, and I'll see you all next time.